for you, didn't it? Like you ended up cashing quite a few people out off the back of it once people started getting some watches.
Yeah, definitely. Made some good relationships along the way as well. It was definitely good, yeah. Hopefully you can do the same in here as well.
I think this one, like what we're genuinely just going to try and do is this the whole point of this VC, because I know I've had a lot of DMs about people wanting to get into watches and stuff. So the
Hmm.
entire goal of this is just like, what questions do people have? What are people confused about? What do you want to know more about? Because I know there are some people who have watches who are now looking for their second or third and they're wondering how they go about that.
Hmm.
And there are also like different things. So what we can do is actually, I think what might be the most kind of worth it is maybe start off with very basic questions that people have, and you can just put them into like luxury chat, and then from there we'll go on to maybe how to get watches, which ones to get, and like why it's worth it even.
Yeah, definitely. And then we can maybe touch on how to register at multiple ADs as well, which I'm sure a lot of people want to do. So then once you're registered at a couple, once you give it, say, a month or two down the line, they really do start rolling in the watches when you can get maybe 5 to 10 a year once you're registered at a couple. So I'm sure people want to take that route as well.
So, like, to begin with, is there any questions people have? Just put it in luxury chat, because I've gotten like some generic ones, but I would rather address them in this or say it on VC, whatever is easier. But just what are people confused about? What do people want to know to begin with in watches? Because there's obviously quite a few different opinions. So just ask whatever you might need.
It was,
I just want to ask someone super, super basic because I've not even gone into this at all. Am I right in saying an AD is an authorized dealer? Is that it? Or is it someone
correct, yeah.
else?
Yeah,
Cool,
the
thank you.
AD is an authorized dealer, yeah. So, like, Watches Switzerland, just wherever's
Yeah,
authorized to sell Rolex.
sound alright, thank you.
And it can be like some jewelry stores as well. There are obviously some stores that only sell Rolex, but within that, there are some stores that also sell jewelry and they happen to be ADs as well. I'll just be a bit more careful with them though, because sometimes they'll ask you to buy like more jewelry and stuff in order to like get watches, which I think is a bit stupid, because what ends up happening is they're like a bunch of fake promises where they tell you to get like a ring or this or that, and then they'll just say, oh, you can be on a wait list, and that never happens. So I would say, as much as possible, don't try and buy jewelry in an attempt to get watches, because it doesn't tend to materialize often.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Unless you can make a deal with the AD, you say, all right, I'll buy this bracelet, but I want to buy the watch at the same time, which a lot of ADs are doing now as well. So they'll say, I don't know, buy this £250 or £1,000 bracelet, but I'll give you a GMT Batman or something like that at the same time, which then it's okay. But yeah, you just need to speak to whoever your account manager is there to see if they would do that deal. But yeah, as you say, a lot of them would say, "Oh, just spend some jewelry and we'll push you up the list." Which just don't even waste your time doing it.
Someone said, sorry, new to the watch game, how to get these watches for retail. We're just talking about how to get them for retail. We'll talk about market buys later, but most of the time, the most profitable things for people are going to be buying them at retail, unless you're
Definitely.
kind of like involved in the market and you know about flipping watches and stuff like that. I don't think buying secondary market is the best thing, unless you're willing to obviously wait like 5 6 years plus, because that's when you'll really see kind of growth on what you're buying. Because it does tend to take, unless you're buying retail, if you're buying at market, you're already buying at like a 20, sometimes a 10 to 20% markup. And obviously for the more like hyped watches, which is like a GMT and stuff, you're not easily buying at like 100% markup. So to make that money, it's kind of like trading, like you're just betting that it continues going up, which might not always be the case. A lot of people that bought the top of the market when like the financial markets were also at highs, they're down quite a lot. Like there were some watches like a rose gold Day Olive Dial was trading at like 70,000. Now it's trading at like 42, 40,000. So you can make significant losses buying at market. So unless you know what you're doing, I wouldn't really be looking at the grey market, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll stay away from that for now, I think, because yeah, as you say, it was when crypto dumped, watches just dumped, but then we saw crazy gains in a 6 or 12 month period, didn't we? Which has never happened in history before. Like the watch market's always just been a steady 8 to 10 to 12% a year increase. It just goes up with Rolex increase, really, generally over the past 30 odd years. But then we had
like subs
a
and
bull
stuff.
run.
They've gone up because the retail price goes up on them, and sometimes obviously demand is outweighing supply, so it's slowly kind of it does end up pushing price up. But we were talking like if you bought a watch for £6,000 5 years ago, that watch might have been worth like £7,500 5 years later. But in the last, like when crypto boomed, we saw APs that had list prices of like 19,000, which normally traded at around 21,000 on the market, so only like a 2,000 premium. They went to 40,000 within the space of a couple of months. So that's where like the craze really got big, and a lot of people did get burnt behind the top because they thought it was going to continue going to 60, 70. But like any market, it can't just keep going up, especially when like the movements are that big. It's really hard for it to kind of be sustainable.
For sure. I do definitely feel like it's come down, stabilised now, and it's definitely moving in the right direction. But let's get back to the next question. So as a young person, how do I best approach AD having no history? So you've just got to present yourself well, really. I'd probably make up a job. I would say I'm into crypto or you're a Forex trader, something like that, because generally they don't like students and they're very picky on who they sell to, right? So what sort of jobs would you recommend, Sid?
I would say like literally the same thing. Like when
Yeah,
I first got mine, I came in, I said I was a trader, and I think it also does. I personally think that having a little bit of knowledge on the brand helps as well. Like we can give you just some articles and stuff just to read, but it's just basic stuff about Rolex. It's just kind of knowing, because it will be very easy to catch you out, right? Mainly because you like if you go in and asking, I want this watch, I want that watch, and a lot of people, from what I hear and I've spoken to my AD about, a lot of people will be saying stuff like, I want a GMT. It just won't happen as a first purchase, especially if you're a young person asking for a GMT. The odds are extremely against you because they know you're probably doing it to flip it, whereas maybe someone older might get away with it. But I would say kind of have a little bit of knowledge about what you want, why you want it, give like a reason for maybe why you want it, graduation, or you've achieved like a milestone or something. And then I would also kind of be, I wouldn't say like you have to be dressed smart, but I would say like smart casual always helps, like jeans and like I don't know, like a decent t-shirt or a polo or something. I wouldn't go in like a tracksuit, for example, because it is still a place where people are selling watches upwards, to 7,000-8,000 all the way to 30,000-40,000. So I think appearance does matter quite a bit. I don't think you can just walk in there for no reason. Like you can just walk in there with a tracksuit. Maybe once they understand like who you are and you develop that relationship, but first impressions I think count quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely go onto their website or call up and book an appointment as well, rather than just walking in. So then you've got like a 30-minute or an hour time slot where you can go in, speak to them, get to know them. This really is, like you say, just all first impressions. If they like you as a person, then they're going to sell your watch. But if they get a bad first impression, then they still probably will sell you a watch, but it just won't be as quickly. And definitely go in there and try them on as well. Act like you're really interested in watches. You love watches. And if you've already got a watch, I would probably suggest wearing it in. Or, to be honest, what I always do, I always wear an Apple Watch. Just so then you don't have to wear the watch back in once you sell it. You can just be like, oh no, I only wear Apple Watch. I wear my Rolex just on holidays or special occasions.
And it's completely fine to do that with like the current state of crime around it. Like
exactly,
I say the same thing to my ADs now, because I will, what I personally find that helps me as well is I will like take pictures of me wearing my watch if I go somewhere nice or something, and then when I see them, show them the picture and I'll talk about that. But I won't always wear my watch anymore because watch crime is at a stupid high, and I think it's completely normal for you to want to protect yourself and not want to be mugged and put yourself in certain situations. So as long as you talk about you wearing your watches and have like pictures, etc., you'll be fine, because it still shows that you have your watch and stuff like that. And what I would do if you are planning on selling it, etc., like for example, if you sell it to MBeats or whatever, you should just take multiple photos of that watch in different cases and scenarios, like just slightly different variations. You can always show it. But that does help quite a bit. And like he said, wear like an Apple Watch or something, just so that you don't have to keep wearing it in, or maybe just wear like it could even be something like a Casio, just to be like, it's just my regular watch if I'm just around town or going to London or wherever your local is. That's, in my opinion, that would do you a lot better. Any watch, it doesn't have to be an Apple Watch, just any normal watch. It could be like a £20 Casio, £25 Casio. It's very normal. I know some huge spenders that do that and they don't wear their watches just for safety reasons, which is a completely normal thing to be saying these days.
Yeah, for sure. I actually went into the AD yesterday to pick up a watch, and the woman said, like, I don't even suggest you wearing this in London. Like, she actually told me not to wear it out.
Yeah, what happened before is that, like, you'd collect your watch, you'd wear it out, and now, but now a lot of people, and now, like, even in your ADs, they'll give you unmarked bags. Like before,
Yeah.
they give you like a Watches of Switzerland bag or a Rolex bag. Now it'll just be like a plain white bag. And I know a lot of people that will even take that bag and put it in like a Sainsbury's bag or a bag like a M&S bag, because it's even less kind of attention in that way. So, or people will just take a backpack and put that in their backpack, and the
Yeah.
backpack will just be like a 20-30 pound backpack. So that's the kind of route I would focus on, because the whole notion of you wearing your watches out and stuff, it's not the same anymore as it previously was. So you don't need to worry about that as much. It's a lot more helpful for people trying to buy as an investment and to sell later, comparatively now to what it used to be.
Yeah, because sometimes the ADs used to actually say you have to wear the watch in next time you are a watch, but that's unheard of now. Since the state of watch crime, they don't even expect you to wear the watch or even ask, from my experience, which is obviously good for the flipping side of things. For sure.
Someone said, completely new to this, do we need to worry about getting blacklisted at all with reselling less hyped products, or is that for limited pieces? I'll let MBeats handle this, because he obviously deals with a lot more people that do sell to him and stuff, so he's got better knowledge of this.
Yeah, so I've never actually had anyone get blacklisted from doing what I do, for buying off flippers basically, but obviously there's no saying that it could never happen. But I'll always give two options when I buy a watch, because I've got contacts in Belgium, so I sell quite a lot of watches to Antwerp, which if it goes out the country, then there's zero chance. And I've done that with quite a few people that I've brought off in Discord. They'd rather keep their AD relationship and then have the watch out of the UK, so then there's no chance of it ever coming back to the AD and then getting blacklisted basically. Or it can be sold in the UK with a very, very low chance. I'll probably brought, I don't know, 150 watches or flippers maybe, and all of them have been fine. But then it's just on the odd occasion where someone might go into the AD and say, oh, I want this watch verified by you, please. Like if they think like a customer might go in, or if they send it for a service which doesn't need doing for 10 years, but they might want to send it earlier, or if they break the glass or something like that. If that, for any reason that watch goes back into the AD, then there's a potential chance that they'll take the serial number and get blacklisted. But as I say, the chances are so low, and I'll always give two options anyway for the watch to actually leave the country. So there's zero chance of it.
I think on
Of
top
you
of
getting
that,
blacklisted.
it also depends, because Rolex make nearly 1 million watches a year. So what
Exactly,
you
yeah.
will most likely be buying as your first watch, 98% of people will either be buying like a Datejust, and if you're not buying a Datejust, I'd say that rest 1% you're going to be buying an Oyster Perpetual, which will be like a silver, black, or kind of greyed out, something like that. So because they're made in like such high quantities, they don't tend to go back to ADs and stuff. The only real like kind of scenario where you would be a bit scared that, oh, it's going to go back to the AD, is if you're buying things a bit more, maybe like a sub, not even a sub to be honest, I'd say more like GMTs, Daytonas, or
Yeah, I would say high end, like
anniversary pieces, all like full gold watches. And like there are some really special watches like rainbow Daytonas and stuff, which no one realistically that I have ever met would ever get to touch, because we're talking spend like amounts of million plus for those kind of watches. And this is also a bit different when you go into like the AP Patek kind of level of watches, because they only make like 40,000 watches a year. So the odds of that going back to the AD are far higher. That's where you really need to be careful, because an AP can easily make its way back to the dealer. And a lot of the times, because AP makes such few watches, any Royal Oaks that do get listed on like Chrono 24 and stuff, they will actively have people looking for like the reference numbers of those watches, but it's very rare Rolex people and Rolex and ADs and all these people do have people in Facebook groups and all these areas that are selling, but they're looking for GMTs, they're looking for Daytonas, they're looking for like olive dial day dates and stuff like that. So no one's gonna really be looking for a 41mm blue dial date just there's just too many of them in circulation and around for people to look at. You only really got to worry about that kind of stuff when you're dealing in APs, etc., etc.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Rolex as a whole is very rare for someone to get blacklisted, but AP there's a lot more chance, but that's something to worry about later down the line. And yeah, AP is definitely something to think about. What's the next question? Is it worth trying to bribe the ADs? What's your experience, Sid?
Thing is, like, I've never done it because I've never had to.
Yeah, same as me.
I think also I would personally say no, because if they take it the wrong way, it can just go really bad for you. Because from my experience, ADs know ADs that know ADs. Like, it's a very connected market. Like, people talk. So if your name does get out there, obviously when you're signing up for different ADs and stuff, when we talk about that, you'll understand that it might not always be the same. But I would say no, just because you're better off just playing it through, like getting a starter watch, then leveling up like that, rather than should I try and bribe them? Also, how would you bribe them? Because some people, when they bribe, they just go in straight into the deep end being like, I'll give you 10, 20, 30 grand like under the table for like a Daytona. And unless you're playing them numbers and you're planning on spending 6 figures plus kind of money, I wouldn't say it's worth bribing an AD, to be honest.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's worth just building a genuine relationship, because then that will last a lot longer anyway. Because if there is someone at the AD taking bribes, God knows how long their job's going to last anyway before they get caught. So it's worth building a genuine relationship, and you'd be surprised how quickly that relationship progresses as well. Like, if you get into a good AD, you should get a date just within 2-3 months, sometimes quicker, and then hopefully get a couple of watches a year from that.
Someone said recommended starting capital and how many watches to aim for a month if completely just starting up. I think it depends. I think it depends on what you're trying to buy. If it's a date just, then you're looking at between 6, 8 to 9 grand. So between 7 to 9 grand is what I'd say you're looking at. And then it depends how many can you buy in a month? How much cash do you have to use? So that's what I would say. And then in order, how many watches to aim for a month, it depends how many ADs can you go to, how many places can you register in. Then that depends. So for example, on like if we take £8,650 blue dial date just, the profit on that, if MBeats was to cash you out at like today, would be £650. So if you're able to go to 4 ADs and get 4 of them in the space of 3 months or something, just let's imagine that the cash out is £650 right now, then you're looking at like £2,600 in profit if you get 4 watches and you sell them off. So it depends how much money you have to sink in. Obviously, to make that £2,400, you're going to be investing nearly 24 grand. You will get that money back straight away, but do you have that cash to invest? That's all it is. That's really all it comes from. I would say for a normal person who's just going to probably buy one watch, you're looking at anywhere between 6,800, but I would say 7 to 9,000 is what you should be looking at spending when you get that call.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And there is always the option as well that I would meet you at the AD and transfer you the money and pay for the watch as well if you didn't have the money. So this is actually open to people with not a lot of startup capital. But yeah, I've done it with a couple of people in the other Discord as well, where I just met them at the AD. One was at Lakeside. That was for a day late 40. That was, I think list was 30k at the time on that. And yeah, we just done the deal. I just waited outside the AD. They went in, brought the watch, and then just done the handover. So that's definitely an option as well. So everyone can get involved.
Obviously, this would just be people who are based in like London primarily, because if it's that kind of money, he's not going to like front it before. And obviously, the amount of risk involved on his side, it would just be people that can meet him. So like, if he can go to an AD, and I'm sure like if you somehow got like a crazy allocation, let's give it maybe like a rose gold root beer, then and you're in Manchester, I'm sure Embiid would.
Yeah, something could be worked out for sure. Yeah.
But the majority, if there's like a day trust or something, it would mainly be London. If you are like UK based and you want to get a watch but you don't have the funds for it, that is a possibility. But other than that, but most of the time, like even if you are able to get the funds yourself and you just want the quick cash out, then it could be anywhere. It can be arranged. So it really does depend on your situation. That's what I'd say for recommended starting capital, though. Just how you can aim for as many watches a month, as much as money as you have. If you're in London and let's say you want to go for like 5, 6, and then you obviously have Embiid to help cash you out, or you have the funds yourself, whatever, then you can go for as many as you want. It really does depend.
Definitely.
Once you get through the wait list with your AD, what's the likelihood of getting through again in a timely fashion for more common watches like day dates and oysters? For context, I got through in about a month, but I'm pretty sure it was just a fluke.
I'd probably say, do you know, if you've got a good relationship, you should get a watch every quarter. I think on average, like you could throw in some like Datejust in there as well down the line, just to say, oh look, there's this style as well. I'd like this, and then I don't know. One of my ADs, I'll get one a quarter, one maybe 2 or 3 a year, but it really depends. What's your sort of frequency, Sid?
I would say before, when I was getting like watches that were easier to get every quarter, but then as you kind of get more and more watches, it will take longer because obviously you're going to be wanting like the most wanted model. So it will get to a point where it will go from like, if it's Datejust every quarter, then if you want like a sub, it might be in like another 2, 3, maybe 6 months, and then if you want a GMT, it might be like a year. If you want Daytona, it might be a year, and then like if you want full gold watches, and in those full gold variations, you want the rare ones, again, it will be a year. So it depends on what you want. If you have a solid relationship with your AD and you want like Datejusts and stuff, and after you've bought your first, your second and third, if you want more Datejusts, it shouldn't be too hard to get. In all honesty, they should give it to you. I don't see why they wouldn't. They're quite happy giving Datejust to good customers. I don't know any people that have had issues getting them after a first purchase, because even like a green dial, like the new green dial, mint dial Datejusts, which we'll talk about because I know Embiid's left it off the sheet, but they are quite profitable, and if you can land one of them, they tend to be decent money as well. But like I know people that have got that as a first purchase, so.
Yeah, to be fair, I do as well. Yeah, quite a few people.
Yeah, they are possible. I would say relatively frequently. But from what I know, once you get your first watch, you obviously want to get the more wanted watches. For example, if you get a Datejust, most of the time you don't want another Datejust. You want a Submariner, for example. And a Submariner, the profits on like a no-date sub, you're looking at something like £1,550, £1,600, something like that. So it does get better and better. Those are like 20% ROI, and then you go into like Submariner dates and stuff and whatnot. It just goes up and up. So, and then you get green dial. There's so many variations, but you always start with a Datejust. From my experience, that's what most people have started at.
Yeah, definitely. Just because you should get one within 3 months. Normally, that's the sort of wait. But it's just maintaining the relationship as well with your account manager at the AD. So you want to try and get their WhatsApp number, ideally. If not, stay in contact via email. Just check up, say, how are you doing, any update, that sort of thing. Just you need to stay at the front of their mind, because otherwise I think they easily forget you. Or just pop back into the store and say, hello, how's it going? Just little things like that helps you progress quicker.
Just because like there are so many other people wanting the same thing as you, so if you're able to like differentiate yourself and make like a mark, they will just remember you more, and you're more likely to get a watch. That's all it comes down to, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Someone said, does it hurt their odds to go in with a friend, or should they approach them? Should they approach an AD by themselves? I would say personally, I would approach them by yourself because at the end of the day, your friend isn't the one buying it. You want to establish that relationship with an AD. Like maybe eventually, if you introduce your friend to maybe to get him watches, but to begin with, I think the best way to get introduced to an AD is just directly by yourself, so that just so that like you're able to build that personal relationship because it's not going to be that personal if your friend is there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll definitely say go on your own as well. But then down the line, you can always refer your friend and you can share the account. So he can use your spend to get watches quicker, basically. That's what I've done with a couple of people as well, which is definitely worth bearing in mind.
Someone asked, worth it to buy a fake semi-luxury watch when going in? Nah, literally no need. Because you're buying your first luxury watch anyway. You're buying your first Rolex, so as long as you have like an Apple Watch or whatever watch, like I said even before, like a Casio or something, all you need. You don't need anything else. In my opinion, you don't.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Someone else said, do you buy from people in the US? That's one question a lot of people had. Like, where do you buy from? Do you buy US, EU? How does it work if they want to cash out with you?
So yeah, I can buy anywhere in the world, to be honest. US, I can buy anywhere in Europe, pretty much anywhere. Australia, I can
How does it
arrange
work
payment.
about taxes? Because obviously you have import taxes and stuff that can, like, obviously reduce profits. How would that work?
It would just be case by case. I would just discuss with the person, to be honest, because it might even be the case that I just line them up with a trader that I know in the US and they can do the deal. Obviously, I'll vouch for the person that it can be done there, or if I can ship it over. And yeah, it's case by case, really. I would advise to just contact me with what you have and then we'll go from there. But deals can definitely be done in different countries.
Bear in mind, you don't always have to say you'll take a watch when the AD offers it to you as well. Sometimes it even plays in your favor to like not take it because in those cases, it just shows that you're a genuine person. So I've rejected a couple of watches multiple times. Like I've rejected a Greendale Datejust and I've rejected Submariner before just because I want to show that my like what I want is real. And what I would say as well, when you get offered a watch, you could very easily just like message M Beats, open ticket, message him saying, got offered this watch. It's costing this amount. Would you want to take it off me? Could we sell it? Could we see what price? Whatever. You can get all of that sorted before buying the watch, so you're completely covered. You have everything in place and done before buying the watch. Obviously, if you want to buy it and hold it for a bit, that's your choice. Like you're completely fine to do so. But in this way, if you've got the allocation, you want to sell it, then you can do it a lot, like literally before you buy it. So there's no worry of I'm going to be stuck with it, etc., etc. Especially if you're going for watches off of the list that we gave. Those are all watches that are going to be sellable anyway. So that's kind of what you want to focus on, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. What's the next question? Opinion of going to ADs abroad? I would definitely, if you're going on holiday, definitely pop into that ADs because I've had a few touches and you have as well, Sid, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got one.
Along the years. Yeah. So, well, so ADs abroad, from my experience, are a lot more relaxed than the UK and they will sell to pretty much, I don't know, obviously it's different AD to AD, but my personal experience is they will sell a watch to pretty much anyone, but if they've got it in stock. But with the UK, because the demand is so much higher and there's such big lists for each model, they have to actually go through the list. But I think some countries the demand is slightly less, so or some countries don't even have lists.
Yeah, literally. Like I've been to another country and I've just popped into the AD completely randomly and I asked for a sub. And I actually went back to London and I got a call about 3-4 months later saying, "Oh, we have a sub. Do you want it?" And I took it. Zero purchase history. I went in one time and we got the call. So it does happen, and I think it is worth it, especially if you just have spare time. Because off of that, I've made like, especially from when I bought it, the price was £6,150, and now like market value, etc., you've made $3,000 off of like maybe 10 minutes of your time, 20 minutes of your time. So it's 100% worth it. I would obviously say bear that in mind, because Paris or Milan or New York, they're not going to be any easier than London is. But if it's other countries, your chances improve significantly. Like the hardest place to get watches, in my opinion, is London. Like London and central cities like London, because there is so much wealth in such a small space. There are so many people wanting them things. Whereas if you're going to kind of more remote cities and stuff like that, it tends to be a lot easier to get watches there compared to like massive centers like London.
Yeah, you say that, but I feel like London gets allocated a lot more stock by
Yeah,
Rolex
of course.
rather than that. So
That's
it's all kind of, it is relative, but yeah, so you're more likely to be able to walk into an AD abroad and just see a watch which is an exhibition, so you can just walk in and buy it 100%. Or they have something in the safe, so it's definitely worth. Like, I recently went to Copenhagen in Denmark, and I just brought a Day Date 40 off the shelf. They just had it there, so
And sometimes what you like, literally like what he said, there will literally be like I could genuinely tell you that there are probably like a couple of London stores which have more allocation than an entire city in another remote country. So
yeah,
it literally does balance out. But it's just that there might be less people wanting it in another city, so it's a lot easier to maybe get like a harder model. But like I said, if you're on holiday and you're able to land like, I don't know, like a easy Datejust or something, you can just have a conversation about watches. You can just pick the Datejust up, come back here, sell it, and it's an easy like 400, £500. So I would always recommend it. I'd also recommend airports. Airports are something that people don't do enough, because sometimes in airports, because they don't actually have client lists, because of course it is an airport, so they might just have something and it's a first come first serve thing. So if you just happen to be in an airport, walk past it, I'd always just kind of recommend looking in, seeing if there's anything, and sometimes you might get lucky and there is. I know someone that there was like a Blue Dial Oyster Perpetual just sitting in the airport, and they could have bought it and they could have made like £1,000 or like 500, £600. So I would definitely look out for things like that, because again, it is just easy money. Um, do they need to be citizens of the country the AD is located in? Like an AD in Libya might have a shorter wait. That's basically what we just answered. So you don't need to have citizenship in the country that the AD is located in, because a lot of people are tourists and buy. Um, and AD in Libya, again, it's like they might have a shorter wait list, but their allocation will be a lot less. But there might just be less people wanting it, so you might get lucky. So it's kind of like that.
yeah, for sure.
You said that it's very unlikely that you get a GMT at the first time when you're on you. Would you then suggest it's not even worth asking for it additional to, let's say, a Datejust when you walk in for the first time? No, not really, because they're never going to give that to you. Like even like a GMT, like before you get a GMT, you most likely get a sub before that. Like you'll get a Submariner before that, and they like taking it case by case. So what I would kind of do is say you want a Datejust and give like 2, 3 Datejust options, and then after you get that, go for a sub and give like 2 options. For example, ask for a date and a no date, and then after you get that, then go for a GMT and again give 2 options, like a Pepsi on a Jubilee and a Pepsi on an Oyster, and say, "Oh, I like both. I prefer this one, but I'd be happy with the other one." I wouldn't ask for 2 different models in one go, from my experience. I don't. MBeats might say different, to be fair, but this is just from what I've had.
Yeah, I feel like it just depends on your relationship, really, and just if you just go in there and say, "I want to try this, this, and this on," and you just be like, "Oh yeah, I'd be," you just need to try on the watch, and then whatever you like the most, just go for that. But yeah, like there might be, to be fair, I've always just said, "Oh, like gone down for like 4 or 5 different models," but I feel like what you're doing is definitely better, because then you're buying something that you actually genuinely want rather than buying it just to buy a watch.
Um, Someone said been waiting 1 year for a Datejust, and someone else had been waiting over a year and haven't been offered any Datejusts. I would say don't just go and register in one AD. That's what I would say. because some are you're just not gonna get offered some, but some will offer it to you in like 2-3 months. I would say diversify. I would say register in as many ADs as physically possible. And Beats will talk about like how to register at multiple ADs because we're like getting closer to the end of the questions. But that is what that is one thing I would say. I would say don't just limit yourself to one because some might just genuinely never offer it to you because like first impressions and maybe there's just not enough stock and stuff like that. So it completely depends at the AD as well.
Yeah, because a lot of the independent ADs really don't get allocated many pieces at all. And they've already got a massive client list. So sometimes, like I've registered at ADs 2-3 years ago and had nothing whatsoever, and I've been chasing them up quarterly, but they just keep saying we haven't got any stock. So but they might only get allocated 200 watches a year or something like that. So they physically don't have enough to give out to everyone that needs it. But then, like the London stores, I feel like they get allocated a lot more stock, so they can really plow through the list that they've got. What's next? Aren't we supposed to wait at least a year? So we covered that earlier on in the chat. So basically, there'll be two options when you sell a watch. I can either ship the watch out of the country, which is normally Belgium, so there'll be zero comeback, or it would be sold here in the UK. But I've never ever had any comeback on maybe 150 watches that I've brought off flippers and then sold in the UK. It's just like we were saying with watches like APs and RMs and stuff like that. There's a lot less watches produced. So like AP produce 45,000 watches a year compared to Rolex that produce over 1 million pieces. So Rolex really aren't looking out for like Datejust and them sort of models on the secondary market to blacklist people. From my experience, anyway, I've never had any issues, and yeah, I've never really heard of people getting blacklisted unless you get like a platinum Daytona. Then they're looking out for that. But with the lower models, which are very common, you shouldn't have any issues whatsoever. But yeah, after 1 year, you're allowed to sell it anyway. But they do just say you should keep the watch for a year.
If it's a less like wanted watch, they just tend to care less. That's literally all.
For sure, yeah. Is an Explorer 36mm hard to get for the first time? That's actually on the list for one of the easiest watches. That's a very good starter watch, to be fair. So that's probably one of the easiest watches to get, I would say.
I would agree with that. I think you actually could get that relatively easily. What should I say if I'm walking in for a first time? You ask for specifics. Not really, just because a Datejust is the first watch that most people go for, so it's not bait at all. It's just that is what most people want for the first time because it's a starter watch in the Rolex like family lineup. So I personally don't think it is. It's just what most people ask for. Anything that we've highlighted in green is what I would basically go for if you're looking for a first watch. Is it normal to ask for multiple watches when you walk in for the first time? Again, yeah, but I would ask for first watches of like the family you're going for, like so multiple Datejusts or multiple, and just give like say that you have like a preference, but you don't mind. Ideally, like you want this more than that, but if one comes in, you'd be happy to come in and try it out or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. What you said about sharing accounts. Is it worth sharing an account, say, of your brother and asking to both got on a wait list? So what I would personally do is build up your own spend first, get, say, a Datejust and a Submariner, and then introduce someone else to the account rather than going in together. Just because it would make it easier for them, because they can use your spend basically. We've watched the Switzerland group anyway. They can use your spend to then get a better watch faster, or just to push themselves up the list because they go onto your account with this got a spend already. So yeah, I wouldn't do it at the beginning, but once you've had a few watches and got to spend, then definitely introduce someone else to use your account.
It's like you said, they'll build up your account with their spend.
Yeah, works both
It
ways.
always helps.
Sorry, when you guys say blacklisted, is that blacklisted just from that one AD, or is that all of them, like, or all of one group? Like you said, the Watch of Switzerland group. Is if you get blacklisted from them, you blacklist from all of them, or do you know what I mean?
You'd be blacklisted from the Watches of Switzerland like group. If they
Right,
have a
thank you.
group, you'd probably be blacklisted from the group. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So for cash, so some ADs will take cash, but they require ID. I know Harrods take cash, but Watch the Switzerland group generally they'll only take up to £2,000 cash. The rest has to be paid on card. But that might be something you can work out with your account manager if you did want to pay all cash. Then I know they can take it, but they just don't like to do it just because of the extra admin that goes with cash, and they have to drop it to the bank, etc.
Yeah, it literally depends on your AD, and I think sometimes it is possible if you are able to tell them why and like work something out. But most of the time, I would just pay it by a card. It just tends to be easier and less questions asked as well for you.
Yeah, because you'll have to explain where the cash has come from, and it's not really worth the headache. Following the question on VAT, yeah. So some countries you will be able to claim the VAT, and then obviously you're meant to pay it back at customs when you enter the UK. So what countries? I know Copenhagen, you can claim the VAT at about 19%. I got a watch in Mexico that was around 12% VAT claim back, but then in America you can't claim any.
Yeah,
It really depends on where you are, and each
you're
country
UK
will have
based.
different.
If you're UK based, you can do it from anywhere in EU now.
Mhm.
Brexit.
Yeah,
Yeah, it depends on the tax rate of that country. Like I think France
yeah,
13%, but it might be higher in some, lower in some, so it depends.
yeah. You just have to check.
Country,
But
yeah.
then obviously that's meant to be repaid when you enter the UK anyway. So 20%.
If you wear the watch, you're fine. If you wear it on your wrist when like you, because then it's just like you're wearing your own watch back. So it depends what you want to do.
Any specific stores in London? Just any of the Watch the Switzerland group, really. And Harrods, I've heard some good stories from, but personally, I haven't done well from Harrods. But yeah, I would just say Mappin and Web or Watch the Switzerland are probably the best stores that get allocated the most stock, or Booker as well. But yeah, I'll definitely book an appointment online or pick up the phone and give them a call. So then you've got a 30 to 45-minute time slot with your account manager rather than walking in. Everyone might be busy, so you might not be able to register.
Mm.
Once you're on the list, are there priorities or is it randomized? So I don't really know how true the whole list thing is, to be honest, but they always say, well, a spend definitely helps, which you only really want to spend when you're buying Rolexes rather than spending on jewelry and other watches. But if you have ever purchased a Tudor Omega, then I'd go back to that store if they sell Rolex as well, because then you've already got a purchase history with them. So it'd be a lot easier for you to get a Rolex, which I'm sure a lot of people in here would have brought a Tudor or something, or even just jewelry from Watch the Switzerland Group or an AD that sells Rolex. So I'd go back to there if you've already got a spend.
I think a lot of people with smaller wrists wear bigger watches, so I would never say it's a weird thing. It's all about personal preference from what
Yeah.
from what I've seen. I don't think it's a big. They'll never judge you unless like obviously like unless you're going like for example if you're an AP you're going for like a 44mm offshore and your wrist size is like a 36. It'll probably be a bit like But most watches you're not going to. I don't think that if you're a 36 wrist size, they're not going to say we will not sell you something that is they're not going to say something that's 41 millimeters just because it's a 5 millimeter difference. You might just prefer wearing a bigger watch. So I think you're fine personally.
No, for sure. Yeah, always go for 40 to 41 mil, I would say. Yeah, credit cards. Yeah, so get your Amex out for the ADs. That's what I do. Always use my Amex. You can claim all the points.
Most of them accept Amex as well.
Mhm. Datejust 36 and OP 36. There's a couple of them do resell, but generally I will just go for 40 and 41 mils. It's just a lot easier. The market's stronger. There's more demand for them. 36 mils is just the demand's a lot less because it's a men's/women's watch. A lot of women wear 36 mils, so yeah, the market's just not as good as 41 mils. So you could get 19% off the watch in the EU. That's correct. Yeah, you could if you choose not to pay the VAT on arrival, but you do that at your own risk. I would always recommend paying the VAT at customs, but I know people that don't and they've never had problems.
How knowledgeable do you think we should be on the watches before we go in, or is it all right? No, I would say just know kind of what you want, like know that a bezel is called a bezel, and just basic knowledge like fluted bezel, domed bezel, things like that, dial color. Like I think just a couple of technical terms like that, because that is what will not even set you apart, but it will just make it believable, right? For what you want. So if you just go on the Rolex website and when you configure a watch, just know what all the parts are actually called. As dumb as that sounds.
Mhm.
Can you register multiple ADs from the same group? What do you think? You've done it, haven't you?
Yeah. So, but do you know what? I think some of the ADs will ask for ID and some of them won't. So this is something they've brought in the last, I would say, 6 months or so. But it's worth initially don't do same group, but then once you run out of ADs to go to, just start doing them individually. And if they ask for ID, just say you left it at home. But we're going to go into that now, or should we wait till the end on registering?
I think we can just go into it now, to be fair.
So the way that I would register multiple IDs is just a different name, or just do like a spin, just jig your name basically. So you can either change your first name or change your second name to something similar. New email address, new phone number, and then change your address, but you can just put your addresses like your next door neighbours or another house on your road, or jump on Rightmove, look on houses for sale or houses for rent, and just pick that address. But I would say as well, it's not too important that the phone number you use is active. Like the phone numbers that I've used to register at different ADs are no longer active. I just contact them via email now purely because it's hard work keeping all the phones on and being able to hear phone calls, etc. When you might not get a phone call for 3 months or so.
Email works fine as well. Most of the time, like a lot of ADs will just reach out to people via email, so you'll be all right doing that, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Good idea to say you're buying it as a gift for like a special occasion. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. A lot of people can say like graduation or something like that, so it's a completely fine thing to ask and like say why you're buying it for that reason. I think it's fine, personally. Do you normally give like an occasion then, Beats, or do you just say you want the watch for yourself? I think both ways work, especially with like the kind of watch you're getting, like a Datejust or something. You're not gonna have too hard of a time.
Yeah, normally I just say I just want to start a collection. That's all. Just say you want to start your watch collection. You don't want to pay grey market prices, so you want to just start it with the AD and just work your way up.
Would it be beneficial for me if I come in with a pretty old Rolex? I really don't think it makes a difference, to be honest. I don't think it makes a difference if you come in with a Rolex or not. If and I wouldn't go I definitely wouldn't go in with a new Rolex because why would they want to sell you a Rolex if you already have one? But for the most part, I just don't think it's needed. I think you'll be fine. Personally, I think you'll be fine. Just going in with like an Apple Watch or like a Casio, I don't think it's going to help your chances at all, to be honest.
Yeah, so with what you just confirmed saying that they asked for ID, it's some ADs will, some ADs won't. So some watch to Switzerland. I know the one in Knightsbridge, I think it is. They asked me for ID, but then another one in London didn't. So it's quite hit and miss, and it depends if the staff's following protocol fully as well. So I would say it's still worth trying, but as I say, just leave it till the last. So do all the independent ADs first, and one from the Watch the Switzerland group, and then Mapping and Web generally don't ask for ID. I've found, but have you ever been asked for ID, Sid? Or
I've never been asked for ID when I've bought my watches, but I've only registered like 3-4 ADs, and it to be fair, also it might change. Like for example, before I like if when I registered, it was like years back initially. So now they might ask for ID, but from my experience, it's not that big of a deal. Plus, if you're registering at different like companies, like as in like mother companies, it's like Watches Switzerland and then a Rolex boutique and Harrods, you can use the same like name and stuff because they're not intercorrelated. Whereas like
yeah,
you do Watches Switzerland, Goldsmiths, Mappin and Web, like because they're all intercorrelated, that's where you're gonna have a problem.
exactly, yeah. Do we need to have a business to be able to sell to me? No, you don't need to have a business. Just if you don't have a business and can't invoice me, then I will need to just get your ID. That's all, and treat it as a buy-in that way. So yeah, if you don't have a business and I'll be sending the wire to a personal account, then I will just need your ID.
Which ones are interconnected? In the UK, Watches of Switzerland, Mappin and Web, and Goldsmiths are interconnected. Them three are.
Yeah.
Most of the time, in like smaller ADs and stuff, they don't tend to be that interconnected, to be honest. I think that's about it. Unless anyone has any other questions that we can answer, that's like the most part. That's everything that you really need to get started on. Especially now that you have someone that can just buy it off you and you can get cashed out for, and at least register. Because even if you register, you can always just message him saying, "I've been offered this. Do you want it? Can we work something out?" And most of the time, you will be able to work something out if you're buying from that list. And on top of that as well, I think you'll very easily be able to, even if you're buying something less wanted, you can get that and then use that to get, more watches that you want even more. So things like that, really, that's everything. If you just go on like the Rolex website and you just look in for, if you just look at dealers near you, you'll be able to find out what's near you. There are like tons and tons. There are so many. Some are just like smaller local ones. Some are bigger. So it just depends. Yeah, unless anyone has any more questions that we can like go through and answer.
And yeah, I just want to say as well, like my DMs are always open. So if you do have any questions, just add me as a friend or just DM me. And yeah, whenever you want, basically. If you want any more advice outside of this, or if you get offered something, then just DM or open a ticket, and I'll always be there to help, and Sid as well.
No worries. We recorded all of this as well, so we will literally just post it in like watch info, so people can access it and just get, you can rewatch it if you're if you're going in or you're planning on like an AD visit, you can just watch certain parts of it, whatever, just for you to catch up on. In an ideal scenario, it would be that you go in for the first time, register for one model, then when you pick that up, you ask for the next one. Yeah, you'd pick it up and then ask for the next one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We've recorded the whole thing, so you can watch it. And even in like this chat, I know, like, for example, there are some people that I know who have done this from like Seven Wealth when we did that, and they got watches, and now they're in like waiting for their second one. And if you know anyone that has Rolex history, or you know anyone that has bought watches or jewelry from a store that also sells Rolex, I definitely recommend reaching out to them and asking them if they can register for something or something like that on their behalf. Because I had someone that he bought a Rolex like a year and a half back, and once he found out that things can resell, he actually went and revisited that AD and asked for a Submariner, and then he got it within a month. So there are a lot of like things like that where if they have previous business from a long time ago, it always helps.
Yeah, it's worth going over again. Just like if you've got a relative or a friend that's bought a Tudor or Omega from Watch the Switzerland group, tell them to go and register because they've already got a spend, so they're pushed up the list straight away. So a lot of people will have purchased watches like that in the past. Manchester ID. Okay, yeah. So maybe Mappin and Weber as well. Yeah, as it's a bit hit and miss in London with ID, but it would depend on who you get with your appointment, really.
And yeah, that's literally about everything. So if anyone has any more questions, feel free to DM me, DM MBeats. And yeah, I would just say just get going and try finding things. Try going to different ADs, try register. It will help you, a lot. So I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, 100%. It's about half an hour's worth of work that can potentially pay thousands. So it's definitely worth starting your journey sooner rather than later with Rolex.
Yeah, the earlier you do it, like especially people that started like all that time back in Seven Wealth and stuff, now they're at a big advantage. So you just got to kind of get yourself to it, do it, I guess, as quickly as possible, and look to build from there. Really.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for MBeats for actually coming on and just talking about it, because it helps for someone who's actually in the game very often to talk about his experiences as well.
No, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate being here as well. Just the last question. I wouldn't. Well, if you've got them sorts of clothes, wear it by all means. But I would just say smart casual trainers and everything is fine.
Yeah.
But just present yourself well. You don't need to wear not very smart clothes. But say if you work in the city and wear a suit, I would definitely try and go in that suit. Just yeah, it does look better, but it's not essential at all.
All right. If anyone else has any questions, let us know. We'll be happy to help. But yeah.
Okay, thanks guys. See you later.
All right, later.